Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Again, this is Vinny Blasio with today's podcast. Today is Saturday, and we're looking at August 10th, 2024. And today's podcast is going to be a little introduction about myself. Some of the media outlets have asked that I give a little background as far as my history, education, and work history and regarding New York State Department of Corrections. And we'll also get into the GoFundMe page for the organizing the donation request for the acronym of the S.T.R.I.K.E Fund. So first we'll dive right into it. So Vinny Blasio, and I started my career in Bedford Hills. So I came out of the Albany Training Academy and went directly to Bedford Hills for OJT. From Bedford Hills, I stayed there for a short period of time after the OJT period, and then I put on a transfer request, and we were not allowed to go back to the home area. So from there, originally from Western New York, from Bedford Hills, I went to Shwangung Correctional Facility. So if anyone's familiar with that, that's a max facility for men. So I stayed there for many years. From there, I was transferred to Orleans Correctional Facility in the western part of New York State. So I did time at Orleans Correctional, and after Orleans Correctional, I got transferred to when Gowanda Correctional Facility opened to Gowanda Correctional Facility, where I worked most of my career. So I stayed at Gowanda Correctional Facility from until 2008 when I made the rank of sergeant. And then I went to New York City in the Bronx to a now closed facility. I went to Fulton Correctional and was there 3 months before I went to Albany to work on for the union. So I was in Albany from 2008 to 2015. In 2015, I made the rank of lieutenant, which I went to Lakeview Correctional Facility and stayed there until I retired in February of 2020 and retired from the Lakeview Correctional Facility. My educational career, I studied at Erie Community College, Empire State College, criminal justice. Also, I did my union studies for collective bargaining, public sector employment, and collective bargaining in the public sector through Cornell University Industrial Labor Relations. So I did the study at State College there and private college, but the Cornell ILR. So that wraps up my little background as far as my education for both the criminal justice system and the labor studies and union involvement. Obviously, labor relations was my the biggest love, and then retired in 2020 from Lakeview. So people have asked, why are we starting the S.T.R.I.K.E fund? And S.T.R.I.K.E is an acronym. We're not proponents of a strike. I am the organizer of it. My name is on it, nobody else. It's not affiliated with any other agency or any other group or any other persons. So S.T.R.I.K.E stands for Solidarity Through Rights, Integrity, Knowledge, and Empowerment. And basically why that has started is because the correction officers and supervisors right now feel that they go to work today, and one, they don't know when they're coming home because of all the mandated overtime and recruitment problem. The staffing is so low that they never leave the jail and they have no home life. And also couple that with the rising number of assaults that they're suffering. We just had incidences, everybody knows, recently at Collins with a suspected fentanyl exposure. We had the exposure at Wyoming Correctional Facility, and every facility across the state, those have been highlighted in the media lately, are suffering from high levels of assaults and what have you, and obviously the shortage. And it feels like nobody's listening right now. We recently have a lot of things that are going on at the Greenhaven Correctional Facility where members are getting injured, and they're getting injured gravely, but we're paying for the bad decisions and bad policy of New York State, not only with the sweat and tears of the brow, but now they're paying for it in bone and blood. And that is totally unacceptable. And that's why we're at with the acronym and the fundraising for S.T.R.I.K.E, because the officers need to see some relief, and no relief is in sight. And we'll touch on the recruitment aspect right now. This is not something that's new. This is a freight train that's been coming directly at the agency for years. And when I say that they didn't wake up in 2024 in August and say, guess what, it's so bad that now all of a sudden we have to do something. It's like, no. And it's been going on. And what have you been doing to do anything? Just saying that you're going to try to recruit and try to have academy classes when there's nobody's to fill it is not the answer. And yes, the agency is partly right that it's not just a problem. It's because everybody has been so down on law enforcement, nobody wants the job. But New York State makes it even worse, because who's going to want a job knowing that you're never going to be able to see their loved ones? And I'll give you an example of that. Just yesterday, I received an email from a young lady, and she has to basically give up custody of her son. So think about that. She has to give up custody of her son for the job, and she wants to provide for her family. Her family shouldn't be taken away. And what is going on is disgusting, because she has to choose, because she cannot provide daycare. She's a single mom. She could not provide the stable life environment that her son needs, because she doesn't know when she's going to be home again. So, she can't all of a sudden go into work and not knowing that, hey, I might be stuck for 24 hours. I cannot leave the child alone. I have no other support system. So basically, she has to give up custody of her child for her job, and nobody should have to live that way. And all the complaints, the letter to the governor, letters to the department, the public media, the rallies, everything has been done, and nobody is listening. DOCCS isn't doing anything. When I say DOCCS, it's New York State Department of Corrections and Community Services. They're not listening, and you cannot put the same people that caused the problem in charge of the solution. It just doesn't work that way. I've said it 1,000 times. You can't expect the people, to solve the problem that they themselves created. And I received a wonderful phone call today, and it was with a superintendent who's been retired now. We haven't spoken in a long time, since I was actually on the job. And I thought that this person did not like me at all. We've always had some interesting conversations or interactions before, but I never thought that they cared for me. Though I always respected them, and what I found out is they did respect me, but they reached out. I had to look at the number to make sure it was actually that person who I was speaking to. But they recently looked at, some of the videos that are on YouTube and the GoFundMe page, and are saying, you know what, we haven't talked in a long time, but I have a lot of admiration of what you're doing, Vinny, and we like what you're putting out there, because you're speaking the truth. You're saying what everybody's thinking, just people cannot say it. And that's true, and that really was emotional for me. I really respected that phone call a lot. And it's one thing to pound your fist on the table and be upset, and that's what these officers are facing. But it's another thing when you're trying to effectuate change. And I think everybody wants to do that in the most agreeable manner. And when nobody is listening to you or saying take it to leave it, that's not the way to go. And we look at some of the atrocious policies that have come out of some of these facilities, saying that we're going to give you AWOLs and take money from you if you don't give up your regular day off, and if you don't answer the phone. And then we have disgusting comments that have made out of Collins Correctional, which it just amazes me how that can go on, and how some of that is allowed to happen at this day and age. And I've said it before, if the New York State Correctional Officer was a private employee, if that was another company, it would have been shut down by now. You cannot let management handle things the way that they're going. And it's not all, like Wyoming just had a great management team do wonderful things for their officers when they had their exposure. And then you had another incident at a different facility, and I'm not going to keep beating up on the administration, where they did the worst possible thing possible. But that's the problem that these officers are feeling. And now we have a serious incident that's going on. I'm not going to get into detail at Greenhaven Correctional Facility, and if something bad happens there, who looks out for the officers? Nobody is. And that was the reason in the organization of S.T.R.I.K.E. Again, for the acronym for the organization, and trying to put benefit together for these men and women of corrections who feel like they've lost their voice, and no one is looking out for them, and no one's changing things. And as a matter of fact, instead of changing things for the better, they're actually making it worse. They're working doubles, they're working triples, they're working over 24 hours, they're getting their days taken away from them. And how can you take a regular regular day off I have planned, or my days off, just like everybody else, and say, hey, I have a doctor's appointment that day. I have my kid's birthday party. I have a communion party, a bar mitzvah today. I have to do something. I have, God forbid, funerals. Life happens, and you plan these parties, weddings, and what have you, and to take all this time away and make them choose work over their family isn't good for anybody. And you're starting to see now that not only are people getting assaulted, and the majority of that we can blame has been written about for years now, as the HALT Act. That was not a way that was going to produce. Rewarding criminal behavior is never the way to go, especially when you take those people out of society, put them into a closed society in prison, and then we're still not going to do anything or try to rectify the bad behavior. You're basically going to give them a blanket policy to create more. And as I said in the last video, the one convicted felon told me, no, please, Lieutenant, give me more time, because I don't want to go be in general population. And you've taken the tools away from us. And that was the point that I was making earlier, is that I was forced out to retire because I could no longer do my job the way that my job was intended and the way that I always did it. So instead, I had the opportunity to retire, so I chose to do so. But these men and women today don't have that opportunity. I spoke to somebody the other day that has over 20 years on the job, and they want to quit. And I'm speaking to them on the phone for hours, trying to beg them, keep it, you're so close to the finish line, do it. And then, what's happening now, and I get emotional, so if I get a little emotional on this, I apologize. But, let's look at Commissioner Martuscello. I mean, let's look at that. And Mr. Martuscello, if you're looking, please, Commissioner, think about what you said and how you're saying it. You go to the press and you make threats against your employees. You wrote a letter to every president of the union, and then you go on channel, I think it's 13 in Albany, and you have an interview bragging about how you used to do a rank of correction officer. I don't know when the last time that you were assaulted or had feces or urine thrown at you, or you had a bone broke or were exposed to fentanyl, but your comments are infuriating, and they add to the problem instead of helping it. So I beg you, please, sir, it's like you tell them that basically I closed 2 facilities. That's not going to change. Okay, you're the commissioner, you're the boss. And then you hang it over everybody's heads. Well, if staffing doesn't improve, we're going to close 3 more. So let me get this right. You're taking an employee from a closed facility, moving them to another facility, so they're always under this stress that they're mandated, they're working 80 hours a week, and they're already under this constant stress. High rate of divorce was always part of the job. Now it's compounded because they don't have family time, and then you're going to hang the threats of closing 3 more facilities over their heads. Is that fair to them? Is that a good boss? Then you turn around and you say, okay, if staffing doesn't improve, we're going to close 3 more. Do the employees have any control over retention? Last I know, they couldn't talk to me and say, hey, I know your job is terrible right now, but will you please hang on so we don't close 2 more jails? That's absurd. And they certainly don't go to the streets. They're not HR. They don't go. You've held the position of director of personnel. You've had every title there is in DOCCS. You've seen this problem coming for 2 years. Where is your responsibility into this, sir? And I'm not throwing rocks when I say this, but this is not new. So help is needed, and help is needed today, but making threats is not the way to treat your employees. So if I go to a facility that's closed, I go to another facility, you tell me that if staffing doesn't improve, I'm going to shut down on 3 more facilities. So now I have a chance to go to a facility that's going to close again. I have to uproot my family. I just put my kids in a brand new school district, and now I have to do that again. You don't think that that's going to cause some people's mental problems? You don't think that that's going to put a little strife on the heart? We already have people that are having strokes because of all the overtime that they're forced to endure. And that's a subject for a different time, because they're personal friends that I hear these stories from, and I read this in the paper and I see the press release. I watch the TV, and you say that. So I'm begging you, sir, as the commissioner of DOCCS, have some compassion. If there is jails that you're going to close, announce the closures. Just say, we're closing these 3. And if you don't know, then just say that there is going to be no closures for this fiscal year. but to hang it over their heads as a threat and a tool to try to get everybody in line to do your basic job as far as recruiting isn't fair. They don't have that type of authority, nor do they have that control. So please, sir, I beg you to listen to the troops that are doing the work day in and day out, and they do a great job for you. And let's please recognize that. And if there's going to be closures, announce it. If there isn't going to be, let's give them a sigh of relief and let them know that too. On that subject, I will leave that alone. So in the last 2 minutes that I have here, I just want to, thank our men and women of corrections and all staff. You've done an amazing job. You're continually asked to do more with less. Your home lives are horrible. We've seen it at the press rallies. There's another one that's coming up. I hear it. I'm not part of the solution, but I am able as a retiree to be a voice for you. You feed me the information, and I try to get it out as much as I can and yell from the rooftops. So I understand. I feel your pain. You guys are doing, and girls doing, a tremendous job of working with what you have. Keep up the good work. Be safe. There's a lot more that I can't discuss because there's a lot of bad assaults and other incidences that are happening, and I'm sure a lot of you that are working in the facilities, know exactly what I'm talking about right now. And it's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable for the inmates, it's not sustainable for the officers, and it's certainly not sustainable for an agency, because at this rate, going into 2025, there will not be an agency. And in no way, again, I just want to leave that the strike fund is for the benefit of the officers. It's an acronym. In no way am I a proponent of a strike, but people feel that they have no voice. And when you leave them with no other alternative, they're going to take matters into their own hands. And what do you think is going to happen? We saw what happened in 1979. And if, being a Cornell, I wrote a whole paper on the strike of 1979. And one of the reasons when you read that Cornell paper, and I did a whole paper on it myself, is that when you look at that, the reasons for the things, the officers felt that the inmates were winning everything, and the officers lost all authority and say in doing their jobs. And that's exactly what's going on today. So it's a pressure cooker, and I feel for every man and woman in corrections, no matter what the title is. And I just hope that the powers that be hear the plea and the cry for help. With that, God bless everyone, and have a good weekend. And we'll have another video out soon in the next couple days, making a couple of major announcements. Thank you, and stay tuned. And if you do like the videos, hit the like button that's on there, hit the thumbs up, so we can keep the feed going. Thank you, everyone, and I appreciate it.